Hello and welcome back to Alchemy with Sheeana Leigh. I am so very excited to bring you this chat today because I am with a dear sister, a dear love, a beautiful friend and connection that I feel so resonant with, and really honored that we are here in space together so you can hear her magic and our magic connected together. And I'm going to let her introduce herself to you. But me and Hannah have been connected for a couple of years now, actually, hasn't it been? Through socials. And yeah, I just love her, her work, her medicine, her gifts, her embodiment, just her in totality. And it's going to be such a treat for you to feel her magic through these words and this energy. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself first, and then we'll dive into what we're connecting about today, if you may, Hannah.
Lovely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here. And just like the moment I like felt our hearts and our wombs like just come into that resonance with one another. And yeah, I'm so looking forward to what's going to move through in this conversation. I will say what's my elevator pitch of the day changes a little every time.
Always.
Um, I'm really, my path is all about not is about alchemy and specifically through alchemical union and of course through inner union, which I would say means letting all parts, all of our multitudes, right, come through and be harmonized and held inside of us. And so I'm also a minister, a ministress, actually, and my partner and I have a temple that we operate together. And yeah, our journey has really coalesced, and Sheeana and I know, overlap a lot in the realms of orgasm and eros and embodiment, shadow work,
Mm,
all of the things. So,
yeah. Thank you so much. I can't wait to bring you this conversation because me and Hannah share a lot of resonance. And when we chat deep and textured and layered and nuanced and follow the threads. And it's always such activating conversation, like within myself, and I know for Hannah. And today we're going to get super raw and real on basically that deep descent journey, that underworld journey, that wilderness journey, and it's going to be yummy. And it's also going to go many places that touch on that because as we sort of weave and talk and connect, there's always lots of threads. We've already connected a little bit before we've dived in, so we know that it's going to be a potent episode. And one of our things that we are in resonance with at the moment is like being in the underworld and still being open to life and how we are moving through that, both individually and collectively. And we'll touch on a lot of different threads, but I would love for you to take us away, beautiful, about, yeah, like the deep descent, the darkness, the underworld journey, whatever you may call it. Come
yeah.
bring it. Yeah.
Well, and I think we have lots of other names too, just to shout them out of like the cocoon and the void. And you
Mhm.
might even differentiate between like a fertile void and a lifeless void, like a consumptive void and like actually like where like soil where we're growing and we're in the soil. And um I like to think of it as like I personally feel like it's a womb and like that there's like this cosmic exfoliation process. And you know, having done this many times, and I do feel like as women, as women, we have a training ground every time. Like our womb cycle is that training ground, and it's like such a such the practice of every time it's like the void calls and we're about to bleed, we're about to release, we're about to shed. Right. This is why I say it's like this cosmic exfoliation. There's like a sloughing off. And we experience cramping, right? Like we experience, like often you might experience cramping, and it's like your uterine walls are literally contracting. And like I believe as like sensitized women, we feel it, right? And I've even been playing with like, can I feel the exact moment that blood is gonna drop? Because the contractions happen and then the blood drops. It's not like we're just streaming blood out. every time. It's like there are contractions and moments. And like, this next level for me is like, I want to be precise and like go squat over the earth in those moments. We also have like, we're also both feral.
Yeah, totally feral. Love it. This is my
Um,
jam, squatting
yeah.
earth.
And it's like the thing that this go round, which is so much more than just going into the bleed. This was like a life cycle time to go down, descent. And like how we opened when we connected before this was it's like I'm still in it. I'm not like, here I am on the other side, ready to be seen. And it's just like, no, how do I actually let myself connect from here and like let myself continue to express? And I did take probably like a week and like go dark on social media and like I wouldn't say withdraw my energy, but just keep my attention more inward. And that was important. And it's like, I'm not going to stop being in this feedback loop with life, right? Because my expression is my participation in a feedback loop with life, where it's like, I come out, I receive reflection, that reflection refines me, I get better. Like, I'm not going to stop, put that process on hold because I'm in an uncomfortable transformation, right? And so, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that we both are like in this space. And I know that the world needs these examples of like, and I was saying also, it's like when we isolate, not only do we stop that feedback loop with life, but it's like the walls close in on us. That void or like that cocoon, it starts to like wrap even tighter, and the sort of shell that we have to like break back through to come out and express again is hard. Like it gets harder and harder. And so, I went down, I had my time where I was like, okay, I need the silence. And like the silence needed to have its way with me. And now it's like I'm still in some kind of transfiguration process that I can't even see the full scope of yet. I can just feel that it's big, right? And like I can just feel that it's big. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm showing up. I'm showing up for it, and I'm showing up for my life at the same time. And I just love that we can offer this to people from this space.
Yeah, absolutely. I love when you talk. It just always hits me in my body and so many different layers. And I'm just like, yes, 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 like feeling you from my heart. But honestly, the reality is that we have been seen and shown again and again, like the compartmentalization, right? And as we were saying previously, before we started recording, that we tend to hide away, and we tend to hide this parts of ourselves that is moving through this kind of like, I would say, this discombobulated, gooey essence. And we hide that away from society and from the people we love and from community. And don't let ourselves be seen in that until we're in that butterfly stage, right? Or like that where we have it all figured out and all aligned. But as you go down this journey of like liberation and alchemy, you start to realize that those moments are just as fleeting and as closely linked to the descent as like life doesn't stop. Those moments get shorter and shorter in time. You move through the descental journey like we do, like cyclically, right? We move through the descent, the underworld, the chrysalis, and then come back out. And it happens again and again, like this death and rebirth process. And it doesn't actually stop or slow down. Sometimes
Never.
it gets shorter and shorter. And so cutting yourself off from life and eros and people and connection and this feedback loop is basically hindering your expression more and more, right? Like it's telling yourself that this part of me is not okay, but this other part and this other expression is okay. And then it turns into like a self-fulfilling prophecy of like, this is bad and this is good. And I am only deserving and worthy when I'm in this state and space and not in this one. And like, it's no wonder we as a society have forgotten how to hold people in that space or see people and understand people and give them grace and compassion and empathy. So many people are just doing it alone and hiding away. And we're like enabling that continuation of that cycle of like, I can't be held or you can't hold me in this because we're so fucking terrified of it, right? Because we don't see other beings going through it because it's hidden and like not exposed, right?
Totally.
Hmm.
Yes. And it's like, for instance, with just the womb cycle example, it's like, I love the idea of like red tents, and there is like a rightful way to contain yourself when, and I shared this the other day on my socials, of like not everyone can hold us in that space, and it is important to choose the people that we bring this part of ourselves to, because it can be a lot. And when people don't have approval for the location in themselves, right? It's going to bring up a lot of discomfort in them. And then they're going to try and fix us, right? They're going to try and like offer solutions or like comfort us and be like, it's not that bad. Or like, it's like they're going to try and like talk us out of the location, because it's a lot of sensation to meet someone in that. And I know we're going to go more deeply into how we work with sensation and expanding our capacity to hold all of that. But exactly like you're saying, it's like, um, most women I know will relate to like this fear of like it's too much. And
Oh.
I think there's also the thing that makes it painful, or no, not what makes it painful. What's that saying? It's like pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Like the thing
Mhm.
that keeps us in the suffering, right? When I was saying the isolation can like be a compounding element. And also when we don't have approval for the darkness,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, I can share more about like this particular one and why it feels big, but like this piece around like I had to remember to trust, right? It was like I felt the bigness of this descent. I was like, I'm going down, like going down here deeper than I ever have before. I don't know what's down there. And again, going back to like the training wheels of every womb cycle, it's like how can you descend volitionally?
Mm.
Because most people fight against it, right? Most people are dragged, you
Oh,
know, and
dragged.
even
Love that you
dragged.
said that. Yes. Dragged down to hell. Dragged
Yeah,
down
you
to
only
hell.
go if you're dragged. And it's like that's why I'm so passionate about this part of like, every time every moon cycle, you have an opportunity to practice descending volitionally, to like let go, to like I always recommend closing as many tabs in your mind, like closing as many open cycles in your life as possible before you bleed. Like, so you can descend well, like you can put your attention, like you can take your attention and put it on the process that your body's going through and what's there for you, what wants to be revealed in the emptiness, as opposed to like trying to keep up with your life, right? And so like whatever you can like reclaim your attention from, all of the things that you were meaning to do and the whatever, because it eats our energy to keep those tabs open, those cycles open, or drains our energy, another way to say that. And so I had a moment where I felt myself fighting it. Like I felt myself thrashing and flailing and trying to like pop back out sooner than was true, because the unknown, right? And I didn't say this at the beginning, but like the majority of my work, like one of the biggest initiations I mentor women through is coming into intimacy with the mystery,
Mm.
right? Like how to really stay open and open in and through the unknown. And this was a level where I was like tested.
Yeah.
I felt it and I was like, I like tried to like, I was like, I had a cry, you know? I was like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay, if you say so. If you say so,
You
babe.
know? And then I was like, oh God, nope. But it's like to remember that the thing that makes it painful is our resistance to it.
Mhm.
And the more volitionally we can descend, the more willingly we can let go and surrender, the more pleasurable it actually becomes because it is a pressurization. But that pressurization is only negative when we ascribe a negative value to it, when we say that it's bad and wrong. But like agnostically or like at a value neutral level, which is, I bet you will agree, like why we work with sensation rather than story, right? It's just pressure. It's just pressure. And it's like, oh God, it's uncomfortable, but like, this is what I trained for to like soften even here, to open even here. So I had my flail for sure. And I'm gonna just pass it back to you and then I'll like continue with like like how did you do with that
What did
this
I do
time?
in my journey? Oh, I can definitely resonate with the flailing and the resistance and and I find as a woman, I do this a lot. And I love that you touched on this about, letting ourselves go in the mystery or being safe in the mystery or held in the mystery. There's so many layers and levels to that because I find a number one safety net that we as women, especially myself, go through is like feeling the illusion that I have control and like wanting the desire or wanting that I have control, right? And so sometimes I feel like, yeah, if I pressure myself or kind of resist the descent or the pull, the energetic pull, or try and rush myself out of it, I will feel that flailing energy. It will be suffering because I will be resisting it will only make it last longer. Not letting it engulf me in full sensations will have me not going to the depths that I can go to, but also not getting like the internal knowledge, not getting the internal like gnosis, not getting the full sensational experience, and then obviously the transmutation that is on offering, like and it as a slather, like on a plate, it's there for me to take. And if I'm refusing it, obviously I'm not gonna have it. Or I'm gonna be force fed it because it is actually meant for you, right? So my journey this time has been the same. There's been extreme parts of me that haven't wanted to let go out of fear and safety and story and many layers and nuance. So it's taken me longer to be in this sort of gooey mess. And so I've had to actually teach myself in this moment to be in it, allow myself to be in it, and then still be creational, functional, still be inviting and opening to like eros and connections and like deepening elements while I'm in it, which has been such a delicious experience, to be honest, right? Like it actually has, because we just touched on it a little bit before, but like feeling the full sensational experience of like the pain and the stretching and the dilating and the waiting, feeling the pleasure in that. So while still being in it, feeling the experience and then moving from that space has been really actually empowering. It's like really empowering. I actually am starting to feel like the seeds of being, I don't know, like my full power. Like I don't even know how to express it. Like it's just, it's it's not, wow, it's really, as I said, I'm still moving through it, but it is like this full like, yeah, like this dark-seated power, and not this power that is trying to obtain or gain or resist or control, but this power that simply is within
Mhm.
me as a woman, like full force. Like it actually feels like full bleed, if that makes sense. Like the full, and I love that you actually touched on that quite a bit about, our bleed being the testing grounds for our capacity and range and descent, because that's what it feels like. When I'm in my bleed, I feel so deliciously woman. Like I feel so deliciously powerful and feminine. Like even in the ache and the stretch and the contraction and the silence and the stillness, all of that encompassing, I still feel deeply like I don't even know how to explain it. It's such a it's a feeling, right? And that is where I'm learning like that power is coming from. So I just feel like a fucking force of nature right now, to be quite honest, even in this. And that is like an invitation, right? Because we, like you said, but previously, like we get this sort of feedback sometimes that we're disempowered in it, or people move into like wanting to fix us and change us and like move into these roles of like savior and victim. But it's like, no, I can be fully empowered in this and powerful in this and be in this, right? Like it's such a different, phenomenal, sensational experience. Yeah.
I love what you're touching on so much, and you transmitted it. Like you know, it's like if you if I if we if you are powerful here, we're powerful everywhere, right? Where it's like, and this is such a core theme of something in my work that I call organic architecture, which is like what is durable, what weathers the storms. And like if your expression or your feeling empowered depends upon you having a good hair day, or like you feeling like turned
Fun.
on for the day, or like there's a whole range. Right. And like I say this very trivial one of like the hair, but like the truth is a lot of women that I know, it's like on the days that like I feel like I'm in my power and I feel turned on and like it's a good day and things are working, then I'm like, yes, 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 life. But then if life hands me something that I don't like, I turn off from life. As opposed to like, how do I like open to this too? How do I turn on to this too? Because that's up to me, right? And like, the other piece, like, I had the feeling, and and this is like something raw from this experience that I'm in right now of like, wow, it was so much easier for me to like let go and surrender and like I had a lot, like a few years of just like being totally taken by the mystery and like riding the waves of life with almost no resistance. It was a wild time. It was a great time. And like that's not the season that I'm in anymore. And like I am in this phase of building. And it felt like the moment of flailing. It was like Eros, the mystery, the ineffable she. It was like, and this wasn't her, but this was my experience of the way that energy was meeting me, of like, and it was because of my own grasping, right? It was like my face was being held underwater, and I was like fighting it, like, let me come back up, I can't breathe, right? And then the thing that felt like it was around my neck, holding my head, that was my grip to
Oh,
all of this stuff in my life and then I was just like, oh, right, I can breathe underwater, right? Like that, it wasn't like I need to come up. That wasn't true. And it felt like getting teary, like it felt like, she was saying to me, ungrip, or I'm gonna have to take these things away from you. These things that you love so much. Because it's like, I feel like Eros in the mystery, it's like they will be with us, they will nourish us, they will fuel us, they will power us as long as we stay open. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, when I really felt like I was on the ground floor of everything, right? I was just easy come, easy go, like whatever happens, like blow me around, and now it's like I feel like I've like, especially with my beloved, it's like we've really built a foundation. And there was somewhere in my system that I had started to grip a little bit, and it was like this, it felt like I got so clear about it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the warning of like, if you keep gripping, right? And this is the thing that happens in the world when we're talking about constructs. Like we can just use the example of marriage, right? It's like people get gripped to this construct. That construct gets rigid. It starts to suck their life force, and then the eros leaves. The eros stays when we are not. And like, I'm not going to say this, I know this for all marriages, but it's like I know from my experience with constructs, right? If I can hold it lightly and stay relaxed in my body and trust the magnetism that organizes this reality, the resonance that organizes this reality, right? And my inner magnetism of like what stays in my life when I'm not clenched, when I'm not grasping, right? Like that's what's mine, and that's actually all that I want. And it was just like, oh shit. Can swear, right? This is uncensored.
Ah,
But it was like,
uncensored, unfiltered, let it
yeah,
flow.
and I was just like, oh, I started to grip. I didn't even notice. It was sneaky. And this is like I love the saying like every level there's a new devil for it's like our ego, like our spiritual ego, it just gets smarter. Like we up level, so does that part of us. And it was just like, oh, I didn't even know that I had started to grip, started to clench. And it was just like I was being held underwater until I had that flash of like, oh, and then just like, oh, I don't even want it if I have to cling to it. And then I could let go. And then it opened. And then I was like, okay, I just do life underwater for however long.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Holy yes. There was so many delicious, like golden moments and pieces that I am just like sparking within me. Like your whole conversation about gripping, like, oh yes. Like when we grip and we strangulate it, we suck the life force out of it, right? It can't breathe at all. We give it no room to simply be and morph and be fluid, right? And that is when we do suffocate and die. Not only the thing that we're trying to grip onto, but like ourselves internally. We calcify, we harden, and it's actually like when you start to learn that or remember that, it's like such a relief in your system, right? Like even as you're saying that, like, oh, I can let go. Like I'm clinging so tightly in the grip. Like even as you're explaining that, I'm like feeling relief in my system. Like, oh, yes, like it's a breath, right? Like I can breathe. I can be fluid here. I can let go from strangling this thing that I so desire because that is actually the suffocation of desire in totality, right? And wow, like once we start to learn to like swim underwater and be underwater and breathe underwater, like it becomes this beautiful, like sensual space of life. Like it becomes like the amniotic sac of the womb, right? Which I love. I love talking about water in this way of like life and fluid because we spoke about it before we began this podcast about how when you think about fluids and water, which we are sort of water beings, the fluidity and the movement and the like waves and softening. Like when you think about that, so that's the birthing ground, right? That allows you to like come out of the cosmic womb basically and be rebirthed. And if you're flailing around or if you're forgetting to breathe and stopping and the water is stagnant, like that is where you tend to breed disease, right? Like you breed disease in stagnant water. Like it's just, and that is just so perfect for how we view this descental journey. Like being in that space, like one of the most beautiful places I can think of is like the fluids and the amniotic sac of the womb, right? Like when we are just, in our innocence and babies, like that is like the wellspring of life. And then to fight it and not want to be in it, not feel safe in it, safe in that mystery that's holding us in that, like that is when we come out and we're not rebirthed or reborn and can come out anew. It's actually where we're doomed to repeat that same cycle until we're washed clean, like, and not clean as in, like lack of, none of that sort of,
Purity, puritanical
yeah,
purity.
no, I'm not touching on that because I'm all about the dirt and the muck, but just reborn in the element of like, internally, like washed from within, where you feel life return, right? Like that full creative, like life essence, like move through you. So you can come out and interact with life with new eyes, with fresh born eyes, and with wonder and delight and play and love, and not be so constricted in your being, because that is when we're open to the sensational experience of life. And that is when we're open and build our capacity to then be able to like move a different way and show up a different way and feel a different way. And that's when it becomes like this element of like newness, freshness, wonder, like everything is magical. Like, and that's the kind of state we want to be in, but you can't be in that state like all the fucking time. Like, it's just not life. Like, that's not part of our human journey, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I do think there's a way, because we were just talking about like unconditional power, and I would say that's also has to do with like unconditionally turning on and unconditionally opening to what's here. And it's just like sometimes that's very easy because it's like it's how we want it to be.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's times where it's like it takes everything, and I have to actually dismantle so much inside of myself to be able to like turn on to whatever's in front of me. But like I generally and genuinely, I guess, like I see, I don't know why I said either of those words. My practice with life, what's happening? My practice with life is like if it is in my immediate field or coming up in my body, it is my job to get into right relationship with it and to turn on to it. And I took the pressure off of myself from having to deal with like these things that I see in the world that are not personally in my life, Like, but it's like if it has made it into my actual sphere of existence, it's my job to figure out how to turn on to it, right? How to meet it, how to open to it, how to love it,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't mean that love doesn't take the form of wrath because it totally does, right? Like that love, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is like set a boundary or hold a boundary or whatever. It's not, but like I will meet it. I will whatever is having me not able to meet it with love or feel like I can play, it's like that's actually something in me that's ready to be sloughed off. Like
Yeah.
like I actually need to dismantle whatever belief inside of me is telling me that like this thing in me or in my life is a problem, is something that I absolutely can't play with, is something more powerful than me, and something that means that I have to close when I'm committed to living open, right? When I'm committed to love. And like this thing is not going to be the reason that I don't stick to that. And so it's like, what has to go or shift or like reamalgamate so
Yeah,
that I
absolutely.
can.
Yeah, I love that. It's true though. It's like it's our turn on, our eros, like our aliveness, our ability to drink life in and taste the textures all comes from within, and it is our responsibility. I love that viewpoint on it. And I wanted to give just like a very human example right now of like even just before we came onto this call, like before we dropped in, you know, I wasn't feeling the best. I was feeling a little bit nauseous. I'd had a very weird descental journey with my bleed. It's been scanty. It hasn't been great talking about the cycles and like showing up with you. I was feeling nauseous. I was feeling a bit sick. I'm like, what's going on? My bleed hasn't happened as properly, like in air quotes, as I believe it to be and has, should have been. And so I'm feeling a little bit off. But you know what? Like you have two choices in those moments of one is closing and one is opening. One of closing would be, and I see this in society a lot in this day and age, is people closing, right? I could have reached out to you. I could have said, I don't have capacity. Can we please shift this delicious chat and do it another time? Or I could open to it and be like, right, like I'm still fully in my power. I'm still fully open to this experience. I am fully open to this connection and chat. And like I'm still powerful here in this space where I'm feeling a little bit discombobulated and a little bit like uneasy, but I'm still going to say yes and show up in my full self in this moment, like in it with you. And as soon as I've done that, like as we've been talking and connecting, like that has shifted and changed within me, which is quite odd. But I wanted to give that real time example because I feel like it was super relevant for people to kind of start grasping these concepts, right? Like I could have said no to life and turn on and what excites me and cocooned myself away and hidden and not come out to play in this sort of like energy and this connection between me and you. But I said yes. And I was like, no, I'm open to this sensational experience. I'm open to experiencing it where I'm at now, right? Instead of having to like control it and making it the ideal time or making it feel like I have this so I can obtain that and that they're parallel, like they need each other, right? Like talking about like my hair being good. My hair's not that great today. Well, I'm feeling it, like I could still show up and it's not dependent on that, right? Which comes from this like deep-seated element within us, right? That this is what the journey's about. This is what this is our sense, this is us being able to experience like the full sensations and being uncomfortable in that, but still exploring those edges.
I love that. I'm so glad that you brought that in. It's so important, and I do think there's another aspect of this too, of like the world needs this, or actually I'll say it this way. I'm growing a lot personally by learning how to articulate from this location. And so and I do believe that like the way that I see this reality as being organized is like if it's for me, like truly for me at like a soul essence level, then it's also for the world. Like this is my medicine and it's the world's medicine, and like learning how to articulate from these locations, which you just exemplified like so perfectly, right? To like, oh, it feels like scratchy, or like I feel like crampy, or whatever. And it's like to just like give language to these things, not only has it be that other people can feel us, but I think that it also like it grounds us inside of the experience. It makes it possible for other people to feel us, right? And again, we're putting it in sensation-based language. It's
Mhm.
not like because that's the key too that I felt in that example you gave, is like I'm going to stay at the sensational level of this. I'm not going to go into the story of like, oh, like this, my bleed is not how it should be. That probably means like I know for me when that comes up, the stories that I try, my rational mind, my linear mind, whatever, like ego really tries to sell me on is like, you did a bad job taking care of yourself this month. Like, that's why this is happening. Or like, whatever else. Like, and
Yes.
it's like,
You haven't
you,
let everything go. You need to strip more. Like you haven't
right,
released enough. Like
right, exactly. And it's like, you could either let that story take you up and out of your body, or you could stay at the sensation. And the cool thing about sensation is sensation in the body is how we track energy moving through our systems, right? Physically and non-physically. And energy actually wants to stay in motion. And so going back to this grasping or this gripping, right? That stagnates, like you were saying with the water, right? It stagnates the energy. And then once it stagnates, it's so easy for any more energy that comes in to like accumulate in
yeah.
that area. This is exactly what you were saying with the water and the disease, and it's just like to put these pieces together. It's like if you can stay with the sensations, and you can remember that energy wants to stay in motion. And my job and part of why I'm committed to staying open is so the energy can stay in motion and do what it wants to do, because that energy is governed by an intelligence greater than my mind. And so the more I can get out of the way and allow that process, right? Like it it won't, like, because I think there's a fear, right, of like if I go into the grief, I'll never get out.
Oh, yes.
If I go all the way down, I'll never come back up. And it's like, you can believe me or not. But what I have found every single time, and I'm sure you'd say the same, is that actually we will naturally be carried back up and out when it's true, when it's time, when what's wanted to be worked out down here, where certain this is the only place that certain things get worked out, right? And then there's other things that only get worked out up here, right? And it's just we're all of it. So it's like being able to go all the way around and like stay conscious, stay in our bodies all the way through and work out like once we do and we figure out how to open again, and then the energy will carry us. We don't have to like climb up.
No.
We don't have to force ourselves to try and go anywhere. You can actually, my practice is always like, how can I like sink down and in to my body and then sink up with the current of life that's moving through me and let that carry me far beyond whatever ideas I have about where I should go.
Right? Right? You just hit so many like notes in that I am just like, yes, yes, yes. Right? And the deliciousness of all of this is still being able to build your capacity to open, right? Like you said, you
Mhm.
spiral down, like you don't actually have to. So many of the questions I get asked in my line of work is how do I come back out of grief? How do I move out of this state? How do I move into orgasmic state? How do I do this? It's like this complete forcing and control and manipulation and this complete terrify I don't even know how to terrification. That's not even a word, Sheeana, but like this complete like being terrified and deeply like petrified, afraid of actually just being with what is, and the complete obsession with trying to obtain that which is not true, right? Like that which, and that is the element that we see so many people flailing around in, right? Like, I don't want to be in this, or I don't want to be doing this, or experiencing this, or feeling this. I want to be feeling that. I don't want to be in this moment. I want to be in this. I want to, and it's like fucking letting the fuck go. And I'm going to swear because I'm super passionate about this so
Go
deeply.
off.
Letting the fuck go of the helm, letting the go of the illusion that you have that you're one safe, because we are never safe, but on the paradox of that, we are always deeply safe. And like two, letting go of the illusion of control, because it's like we do have control, but also we have absolutely no control whatsoever. So it's this delicious being uncomfortable in the paradox, or being comfortable in that cosmic paradox, right? Like the area and element of gray, like not this black and white, not this good and bad, not this, like, it's just letting go, like letting it all go. Because when you can do that and when you can truly be with what is true, like the element and energy of true, that is when you start to pierce the illusions and be comfortable in your sensation. And then that is when you can actually like open up to all that is without closing off and creating those that stagnation, that contraction, that element of like resistance, right? Because resistance also is an illusion. Can you really resist anything, or are you just going to get dragged down, right? Like it's a,
Right.
and the paradox of the life that we're living in. You can resist, but you'll be dragged. Like, can you really resist? Not really. Like and being safe and comfortable in that, being comfortable in the uncomfortable. Like it's such a, and I believe truly as women, this is what we are designed, like this is what our vessels are designed
Mhm.
for, right? Like in birth, in life, in our cycle. Like it's evident that our biology is wired for this. And we have been so led to believe that our biology and our body and our human is like dirty and tainted, that we resist that in and of itself. And that is part of the problem. Like be a feral, like learn your body, learn the literacy of your body, and like that is when you truly can go into these moments like without closing, receptive.
Totally. I mean, I love that you brought in the paradox, and you brought in the paradox of the like the we're always safe and oh, I was going to touch more like deepen more on that second paradox you brought in of like can we ever resist anything, right? And it's like the energy is going to have its way with us
Yeah.
one way or another. And like because I know that I like both of us also um are like invite people to initiate themselves in certain in various ways, right? And it's like you do have to choose your initiations in a certain way. It's like yes, they'll all happen because people will use this like what's for me can't miss me, right? And it's like it could miss you this lifetime. You have one life in this body for you to choose fully in. And like it's not guaranteed that everything that you feel like is meant for you or is destined for you is going to show up this time. It's going to show up when you participate and like do what's on your end to do to have it, right? And that's such an important paradox because it's like, yeah, resist like what we resist and try and like force ourselves in another direction, we're not free from. It's gonna, because forcing is like you're going against the current of energy, right? And you can do that for a while. You can swim upstream, but at some point you're going to get tired and that wave is going to take you. You know, there's no total avoiding of it. There's only delaying it. And at the same time, when it comes to things that we desire, right? Because we can try do what we want to like get out of things that we don't like, right? And then the other question that we also get a lot is how do I get this thing that I want? Right? Not like so how do I get out of this thing that I don't like is
Yeah.
one. And then how do I get this thing that I want is the other. And you participate with life. Life has this incredible architecture to it, right? Like the energy that we're talking about follows a set of invisible laws. I think of this as a like truth and further logos. And that governs this movement of energy, this movement of eros in a certain way. I mean, which came first? But like they're like, which is another paradox, right? Neither did. So I wouldn't just say that like eros follows logos. I would say that logos erected itself in response to eros also. Not one or so like not chicken or the egg or whatever. Um, but it's like you learn to move with the energy and say yes to it, whatever it is. I love that this is like such a clear emergent theme and you know it's like you learn to say yes to whatever energy is initiating you. You can totally say no, but like it's anything that you create from saying no is finite, right?
Well,
It's like it cannot, it's not durable. This is why, again, it's like organic architecture, this body of work is so about like what is, did I say this before we got on the call or since? But it's like it's about what will endure the storms of life. That's what I'm interested in. That's the only thing I want to build. And that's why this like coming down, being held underwater until I surrendered, until I gave up that resistance, right? It was like otherwise what you build is not going to be this foundation that you're committed to. Like, I want to build upon the rock. And like that rock is like that foundation, that solid foundation that will weather the storms is always aligned with that energy, with that magnetism, with me being surrendered.
yeah. Holy shit, wow. I love our chats. I always get so ignited and so I find that we bounce off each other like effortlessly and can speak into so many aspects that are hard to find language for, right? Like speaking in sensation and speaking on these concepts and that alone is such a yummy part of our relationship, but also to find like the trace the common thread and weave it together until it comes to this like poignant like gnosis, like this, like beam, 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 like with, I'm seeing it in flashing lights, like a Hollywood sign, like energy. It's like, yeah, like allowing the energy, like the energy is the common thread here, right? And I love that because I believe that both of us work so deliciously with energy and like a lot of energy and energetics that people deem as wrong, which I absolutely love. And so they're not getting the full taste of life. They're not getting the full taste of their energetic expression or their energetic essence, or they're building, their houses on sand, right? And everything just falls away because there is no sturdy foundation, right? Because it isn't true. Again, tying that in again. And I think that if that is like one takeaway from this whole conversation is building like your capacity for sensational experiences and also really listening to and feeling the energy without trying to force, manipulate, control, contort it are like two very simplified things that I wanted to just like highlight here because it's like when we start doing that, when we actually truly start doing that from this place of like knowing or power within us, like everything in our world shifts and changes, and the dips from the underworld and like the wilderness and life kind of become less, even though they're like a super sensational internally, but externally they start to become less erratic, right? Like that's what I've noticed in this experience is like on the surface layer, everything in my life looks steady and stable and foundational and like calm. But like internally, I'm going through a very sensational like recalibration experience, but it doesn't throw me like this. And my arms are like waving side to side to show like this tsunami wave of what's going on. Because I find that it's calmer, it's quieter, it's more pleasurable, it's more erotic, it's a lot even more painful, I would say, as well sometimes. It's all of those
Mhm.
things in one, but the expression of that in my world is less, which I think that is like a testament to doing this work and coming backwards and forwards and being in it and allowing the energy to be without force and control and manipulation. Because as soon as you start to do, like you said, it's like take it, ripping a toy out of a child's hand. Like it becomes this fight and this fierce, um, yeah, flailing around, attachment, gripping, like that is where it becomes messy. Like it's quite interesting, this fucking human experience, isn't it? Being a woman, traversing this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you really like I love that you brought it back to this last piece of like holding and circulating sensation in the body. And another thing I felt like you really were transmitting as you said that was it's like, and this is something that also is a common refrain, right? Of like, I can handle this. It's like a common refrain in my world. My clients have heard me say this. It's like, whatever you do, don't tell yourself you can't handle it, right? Because that's where, again, like we start to like negatively compound whatever contraction is happening because it's like we're saying it shouldn't be happening, right? Versus like, and again, I heard this in the way you were saying that of like, if I can meet this pain, I'll be deepened by it.
Mm.
And if I'm deepened by this pain, then there's expanded capacity for pleasure on the other side. And I don't even really like use pleasure and pain very often because I prefer to stay more value neutral. But like I know right? And just for everyone, right? It's a spectrum. Pleasure, pain, and actually it's just all sensation.
Oh,
Right?
sensation, baby. Yes, yes.
And so yeah, and so like if I can say yes to life, if I can affirm to myself at every turn, if it's here, if it's in my life, it's my practice, and I can handle it. right? Because I trust the intelligence of life that brought it to me. And and so, because like that's such a common thing that our resistance, that voice that wants to pull us out of the experience will tell us, right? It's too much. I couldn't possibly. It shouldn't be happening, right? And just and like I would invite anyone listening to this, like just get familiar with those refrains in your head so you can recognize them when they come. Right. And I shared a few of what mine are on this in this podcast at various points. But it's like the thing that the idea that you can't handle it, that it's too much, that like it's wrong, that it shouldn't be happening. Like, they're very convincing. Totally. Like like I've bought that story before many times. And like at a certain point, it's like you recognize what those voices are. You know what they're selling you, right? Like your own victimization. Like they're going to give you great reasons to stay a victim or to stay stuck where you are and not come out, not be seen, not be expressed. And then it's like you know what they're selling, stop buying it. Right? And like come back to the sensation that's here and take like one digestible bite of the experience that's happening in your body right now. Because the other thing is I think people really chase catharsis, you
Oh,
know? Like they really chase these like big cathartic experiences or like, plant medicine journeys, which I'm not knocking at all, but I think most people can see that there's a lack of integration in a lot of these spaces. And it's the same like people will use breath work and like really and like I'm all for psychedelic experiences. I personally am of the mind that like when we are actually living from being rooted in our wombs, it's a trippy experience. You're just like everything's interconnected and I feel all of it and I'm just walking around aware of it. Like it's trippy. Being a woman, like you said, it is actually just like a psychedelic experience already. And I heard this great thing the other day of, people are like, oh, I want to like normalize your supernatural experiences. No, like this is a supernatural experience. Most
right.
people just aren't experiencing the actual reality of it. Like they're experiencing this other like illusion that you've touched on really beautifully, right? And it's like if you can actually come back to the sensations in your body, it and it's subtle. So there's like a process of like becoming attuned, but it's like at a subtle level, everything is mystical. Like there is a whole interconnected fabric of reality that you can sense and be moved by and move with, right? The more that you are open to it and the more that you're present to what's happening in your body and not buying all of these seductive stories about why you can't.
Yes. Yes, 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 1,000 times. And I love that you touched on that too, and especially as we're seeing like the rise of spirituality and stuff at the moment, it's like, and you touched on like mysticism and psychedelics, it's like we are having a spiritual experience, just being in our human body, like being in our flesh, like being at the altar of our body is a spiritual experience. Like, and so there's this missing bridge. Like people always are looking like external and out there. And again, like not being with what is, which is again another common theme and thread we keep touching base on and wanting to escape from or, not be with what is out of thinking that they're missing out or losing out or it's somewhere out there. And it's actually in here, like that mysticism, that you know, eco-eroticism and that fabric
Mhm.
of life that we're all connected to, that mycelium network that we're all intertwined with, the earth and the trees, like it's actually all in here in our womb, like in our body. And
Right now.
yes, right here, right now. And every moment we are resisting that or saying no to that is every moment we're saying no to life and
Mhm.
to spirit and to the sensational experience, right? And it's like one of the things I love is like I can handle this, right? And like also like I can be with this. Like I can feel this. I can be here and I can feel this. And that like without combusting, without exploding, without fearing it's too much and it's gonna be like, because so many people are afraid of death. Like it's honestly like this deep-seated fear of death that they're
100%.
really missing out on, like initiating themselves into to truly experience and taste the full textures of life as it is right here, right now in this moment. Like, and that is the true element of like what it is to be this like, you know, delicious erotic woman. Like, and it's just like it's so simple, and that's what I think blows people's minds so much is like the simplicity of it. It's like, no, there has to be another way. There has to be a book about it, or there has to be like a 10 million steps to get from A to B, and it can't be that simple. But truly, truth is simple. Like, truth is
Right.
simple, and reality is very intricate in one way and layered and textured, but in another way, it's simple. Like that's it. That's the medicine. Like there's no you have to be something to get that. There's no you have to escape to experience transcendence in another realm. Like no, you don't have to like it's so fucking simple. Get in your body, like be with what is. Allow the energy to move through you without resistance, without force, without manipulation and let go. And it's so simple. And then people are like, no, I'm gonna resist that too.
Well, and it's simple but not easy, right?
Simple
Like
but not
that's like
easy.
the quintessence of the path is like it's simple but it's not easy. And I think just to put a bow on this, right? Like the other piece that you were alluding to, and I would just say explicitly, right, is it's like intimacy with death is intimacy with life. And there's no intimacy with life possible, like, or your capacity for intimacy with life is very, very, very limited if you do not also meet death. If you do not also, and another way that we're talking about death here, right, is it's like the underworld journey is the death, and then we're reborn new, right? And so that the intimacy we have with the underworld and with the death process is exactly like we talked about the pleasure and pain spectrum, right? It's like that is on the same spectrum. It's all intimacy, life, death, and like our capacity for one is perfectly mirrored and perfectly reflected in our capacity for the other. So I
Oh,
think that's on that.
oh my God. Yes, yes, yes. I cannot even believe this conversation that we've had right now. This is going to be buzzing all throughout my body for the rest of the weekend. And I know it's going to be for everybody else that's tuned in and listen. Like you are absolutely I know you're probably rolling around and probably having to like listen to this a few times and take a few moments with your own sensations and your own sort of like transfiguration within you. But honestly, I just wanted to, before I wrap up and before I close and invite you into a sort of a closing, I just wanted to say from like the bottom of my heart, like, thank you, Hannah. Like, I'm so honored that you came into this space, that me and you connected a few years ago. And it's every time I'm shook and taken aback by the power of us together. Like, honestly, I'm like, wow, shit that comes through us is incredible. And I'm blown away by it. So thank you. And I know that what you have shared here today is going to be such medicine and well received by the people in my community. And, hopefully they will join your community because they're much of the same. And I love that. So before I invite, ways that people can find you and work with you on this sort of deep, intimate level, I would just like to ask for you to just take a breath in your body and see if there's any other little like droplets or anything that's simmering in your body that you feel called to share before we sort of close this space together.
I feel complete. Like I
Yeah.
would love to just talk to you for hours and hours and open up
I
more things. But I think that we like really left it on a beautiful note of completion.
agree. Wonderful. So, yeah, I would love for you to share with everyone how people can find with you, connect with you, deepen into conversation with you, work with you, any of that deliciousness. I'd love for you to just lay it out and invite people into your world and into your energy because it is so fucking delicious that I just feel like every woman needs to be a part of it. So, take it away.
Oh, thank you so
Mm.
much. I'm really grateful to get to be here, and every time we connect just feels magical. So thank you. And I'm really celebrating you creating this beautiful space that is this podcast. So
Thank
amazing.
you.
And like
Thank
huge
you.
congratulations to you on that because it's so important to like carve out our own space. I would say I have a Substack. I would love to do a podcast. I haven't like, done that yet, but my Substack is where I share like sort of deeper, more intimate writings. I've also, like Sheeana, reckoned with some censorship for, erotic content, and it's called the Eros Diaries on Substack. I have a sort of like master class experience coming up soon called Erotic Overflow that is all about, right on tune with our conversation, paradoxical embodiment. So illuminating the circuitry of paradoxical embodiment. And, I have deeper journeys as well. Erotic Alchemy is sort of my signature program. And I have a name that I haven't dropped for a longer 6-month group journey that'll also be coming later this year. And the best way to connect with me is Instagram. So find me at Hannah Vara. I'm sure she'll put it in the show notes. And yeah, I can't wait to share this episode with the world. And thank you so much for traveling and like for being able for like I know that we can traverse just so many locations, and I'm like we should totally record another episode when we're both like the phoenix, like where the
Oh,
ashes are
goodness.
like 6 months or whenever from now, and we're like whoa.
Imagine. Actually, that would be really interesting then to see where we're at and how we move and how we have traversed our own inner landscapes and this like wilderness journey within and who we are and how we show up differently. Um, moving mostly gracefully through it without flailing around too much. Be interesting. But yeah, I just love you so much. And my heart just explodes every time I'm near you and not even in the physical, but only online. But yeah, and I know that people are going to feel the same. And this journey has been a big journey, the big podcast. We've touched on a lot of textures. If you feel like called to reaching out to us, deepening the chats, please do. I always offer that up. And yeah, thank you so much, Hannah. I know that your voice and your embodiment is just like a gift and medicine to so many people. So thank you.
Thank you. I love you.
Love
Appreciate
you.
it so much. And thank you everyone who tuned in, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.